A Massachusetts residential purchase agreement is a contract that states in writing all of the terms and conditions between the buyer and the seller of a home. Legally binding once signed by both parties, it is an essential document that helps to make sure the transaction goes smoothly. In this video, we'll cover how a residential purchase agreement works, legal requirements in Massachusetts, and what you need to create one. We're eForms, the biggest online database for legal documents. Stick around and we'll tell you where you can find an official residential purchase agreement specific to Massachusetts. First, let's review how does a residential purchase agreement exactly work. A residential purchase agreement initially acts as an offer letter from a prospective buyer to the seller of the home. It states how much the buyer is willing to pay, how they will finance it, the closing date, and any contingencies that must be satisfied by either party for the contract to remain in good standing. After reviewing the agreement, the seller can accept, reject, or make a counteroffer. In most cases, it takes some negotiation between the buyer and the seller to reach an agreement on all aspects of the contract. Once it's met, both parties sign the document, making it legally bound. This means that the agreement can only be terminated if both parties agree to it, or if a contractual contingency or other legal requirements is not met. So, what are the legal requirements in Massachusetts? Massachusetts does not require the seller to disclose any defects on the property, meaning it is the responsibility of the buyer to inspect it for any issues. This is known as buyer's beware or caveat emptor in Latin. However, there are some exceptions. Massachusetts law requires the seller to get the property's septic tank inspected prior to selling the property to make sure that it's compliant with state standards. In addition, federal law requires that for any residential buildings built before 1978, the seller must disclose the property's history of lead-based paint exposure. Now that we know more about how a residential purchase agreement works and what's legally required, here are some things you should do to make sure the process goes smoothly. Include a mortgage pre-approval letter. A mortgage pre-approval letter is a document from the bank estimating how much it is willing to lend to the buyer based on their credit history, income, debts, and assets. This helps the seller determine whether the buyer is financially credible. Offer an earnest money deposit. An earnest money deposit is a percentage of the offer and provided to the seller as a show of good faith. It is written into the residential purchase agreement and typically delivered when the agreement is signed. Use an addendum to modify or add to the agreement. An addendum is often included with a residential purchase agreement to add to or amend any terms and conditions. It can also detail a contingency which allows either party to opt out of the contract if certain terms are not met. If you are in need of an official Massachusetts residential purchase agreement, you can get started by clicking the link here. Hit the subscribe button as well for more videos that help you simplify the legal process for everything ranging from buying or selling a house to making a will.